What is going on, everybody? A Frugan here, and we're back with another video for the channel. This one's a little bit different than what we're used to on the channel. You know, we'd have a lot of Fallout 76 content on the channel, but we're transitioning more of a gaming channel, not focused on just one game. I cover games that I find interesting, games I want to play, reviewing games, patch notes for certain games, and we're starting that off today with a video on some patch notes from Diablo 4. Now, you're wondering, Diablo 4? But this game's not out yet, and we're already getting patch notes? Yes. So stay tuned and stick around, and we'll get into it here in a moment. But if you like what you see, like the content we provide, and you want to see what the future of the channel holds, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like the video, and leave a comment down below to see what you're most excited for about this, what the patch notes have to offer. So we're gonna go ahead and get into it. So we're about 3 weeks from beta that happened about 3 weeks ago, right? So almost a month, almost an entire month since the beta has happened, and there were a lot of complaints, gripes, and concerns about a lot of fans and players who were wanting to play this game. And you know, I was one of them. You know, there was a lot of issues with having to go back and forth in these dungeons. There was some stuff that wasn't fine tuned yet. Some things were a little OP. Some things were a little too weak. Believe it or not, the devs have heard our cries. They are fixing a lot of things that are coming to the game on launch. So they're fixing things from the beta before the game launches. So when the game launches in the beginning of June, we have all these things that have been fixed, with more fixes to come throughout the game's history and being out. The first thing I want to cover here, we got the dungeon layouts. One of the biggest things they heard was that a lot of the dungeons were doing a lot of backtracking. So they've optimized multiple dungeons across all zones to minimize the need for backtracking. So you don't have to go back and forth. Say, like, it tells you to kill all enemies. You don't have to go find certain enemies in certain areas and stuff like that. They're minimizing backtracking, so we're not having to go back and forth through the dungeons. So specifically, ones in the Fractured Peaks that are getting really layout plan updates are Caldera Gate, Defiled Catacombs, Derelict Lodge, Forbidden City, or Frost Demise, Immortal Emanation, or Dragon Barracks, Mallwood, and Rimscar Caverns. Bear with me, I might be pronouncing some of these things wrong, but like I said, I could be pronouncing them wrong, but bear with me. And the developer notes, our primary goal with the layout changes was to reduce certain kinds of backtracking which detract from a player's experience. An example of this change is that players previously needed to enter side rooms to interact with structure objectives, causing them to retread the same path over and over again. Now, many of our structure objectives have been repositioned along main dungeon pathways, making them easier for players to reach and allowing them to readily explore the dungeon after defeat. Tons better. You don't have to go down all these side paths. You know, you're still going to want to go down these side paths to discover, because this leads into another thing. Dungeon events. Dungeon events, the chance for an event to spawn inside of a dungeon has increased from 10% to 10%. So, not only are you going to want to go down these side paths now, but to trigger a potential event, it can happen on the main path as well. But the main objective of that dungeon will not be on any of the side paths. It will be on the straight forward path, so you know exactly where to go, so you don't have to backtrack every single time. The dungeon gameplay. So, reduce the need to backtrack. Small numbers of straggling monsters will seek out the player to help complete kill all monsters objective. That's not bad. That's not bad. I'm not a huge fan of kill all monsters because you always got to find that one that's in a straggler somewhere in a corner that you've already been. So that's a good one. That's a good one. When Animus is gathered, the player and nearby allies will gain 10% resource and reduce all active cooldowns by 1 second. Not bad. It gives you a benefit for picking up the Animus. You know, a little benefit there. The pausing Animus channel time has reduced from 3 to 0 seconds. The time to rescue was reduced from 3 to 1.5 seconds. All rescue objectives now drop a health potion upon completion. Okay. While carrying the ancient statue, bloodstone, mechanical box, or stone carving, you will receive a momentum bonus granting a 25% move increase you ally. Now that's actually really good, because you typically run a little about the same speed as you would not having those items. Now they're giving you a speed bonus when you have those items picked up, so you can deposit that item a little faster. That's actually a pretty good one. I thought they did that one. Pedestals had their channel time reduced from 2 to 0 seconds. Returning a portable object to its pedestal now fully restores health, resource, potions, resets cooldowns for all nearby players. Okay, that's a huge benefit. All doors now generate a mini-map ping when they are opened. All structure objectives in dungeons now have additional combat mechanics and players must overcome. Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. While our dungeons offer a variety of objectives to complete, player feedback stated that the action of completing each objective felt tedious. We hope that providing bonuses such as these increase to mobility while carrying certain objective items will streamline and vary the experience of completing objectives. This adjustment is merely a starting point, and we intend to extend the philosophy to key. Okay, doesn't sound too bad. Doesn't sound too bad. So, all around, dungeons are going to be a little more easier, faster, and more streamlined to complete instead of having to go backtrack back and forth for certain objectives. So you have all the side doors and side thing rooms that you have now, but they are, needless to say, just going to be for events or just exploring in case you want to try to find more items or just want to kill everything. So, but the mainline objectives are now on the straight path. Okay, that makes it a little bit easier. Dungeons are a little bit better. You can get some buffs and stuff. Now classes. So now there were some classes that were really underperformed, some that were okay, some that were overperformed or OP, however you want to call it. They were a little too strong for a beta, and they shouldn't have been. I was wondering, when I was streaming this with my chat, and I was on like, I'm curious of how they're going to nerf this specific a couple classes. Like the sorcerer and the wizard, not the sorcerer and the necromancer. Because both were very OP, being the necromancer being even more OP than the sorcerer, but they both were OP in their own right, and barbarian and the druid, which people are very excited for, fell flat. But you also got to think about this as well, that there are certain mechanics that are locked that we didn't get to try that are in the late game. You couldn't get access to everything. Max level was 100, not 25. So there's still things we can get and proceed to enjoy. So we're going to go over the classes now and see what's changed for each. So in general, for the classes, effects like stun and freeze can be applied to elite monsters twice as long before they become unstoppable. Okay. Reviewed class skills confirm that all classes have access to sufficient skills that remove control impairing effects. Okay. And many legendary powers have added updates to their effectiveness. Okay. So far, not too bad, not too bad. Alright, Barbarian, one of the ones that fell flat. I didn't play Barbarian, but I heard a lot of people talking and complaining about it, about how he fell flat, wasn't doing enough damage, one of the best skills, Whirlwind, wasn't doing enough, and all of this. So let's see what they got. A flat 10% passive damage reduction has been added for the Barbarian class. Some skill tree passives had their damage reduction effects reduced to compensate. The Whirlwind skill now deals more damage and consumes more fury. Okay. And the double swing skill enchantment refunds its full fury cost when you stunned or knocked down. Okay. I don't know what the double swing skill is, but the Whirlwind, that's one of the most famous barbarian skills to have. It deals more damage, but at the cost of consuming more fury. Not bad, you gotta give some, take some. That's how it usually is. So now that it deals more damage, it's gonna be interesting how much more damage it's going to be doing versus what it was doing. For the Druid, we got companion skills now deal heavily increased damage. All ultimate skills have had their cooldowns reduced. Okay, that's really good. Usability improvements have been made to maul and pulverize, and using shape-shifting skills will transform a druid back into their human form. Okay, that's not bad. Makes sense. Makes sense. I mean, it was very underpowered. People were very unimpressed with the druid. Could be better. We'll see what happens in the rest of the game when they add more patches and they nerf and buff. Now, here comes a nerf that I know is going to happen. Necromancer. Summoned minions will die more often, requiring players to utilize corpses more often. I will say this. When I played Necromancer, my minions barely died. I was using it every once in a while because, I was like, oh, I noticed he would die. Like when the Butcher or something appeared out of nowhere, he would die. But more often than not, they wouldn't die. You're running out with all your skeletal warriors, your mages, and your archers, all this, and it's just like, I'm unstoppable. You can't touch me. Bah. Many bonuses in the Book of the Dead have had their stats increased. Okay, which is good because that wasn't. It's kind of a nerf buff situation here, and that was nerfed, for the minions. But this was a little buff for that. The damage dealt by the corpse explosion skill has been reduced. Saw that coming. I'm gonna say that I definitely saw that coming for corpse explosion. That did not surprise me at all. The brightness of the skeletal warriors and mages have been reduced. Okay, I heard a lot of people complaining about the warriors and the mages being too bright, too colorful for a darker, grittier Diablo type game. So yeah, I can understand that they wanted to tone down the colors and stuff like that. Don't want to make it as colorful and popping as Diablo 3 was. So yeah, I can understand that. Okay, another class I didn't play. The Rogue. Upgrades for subterfuge skills have had their bonuses increased. Multiple passive skills have had their bonuses increased, and all imbuement skills have had their cooldowns increased. Okay, so kind of a little nerf, a buff, yeah, a little nerf. Cooldowns increased. Okay, so I don't know how this works because I never played a rogue, so I don't know how this is gonna work, but it could be interesting. Sorcerer. Another one that was a little broken. Not as broken as the Necromancer, of course, but still a little broken. We got Charge Bolt's damage was increased, and the mana cost to cast was increased. Okay, makes sense because I want people to use something other than Firebolt and Chain Lightning. Oh, speaking of Chain Lightning, decrease the damage of Chain Lightning and reduces effectiveness against bosses. I wonder why. Decrease the cooldown for the Incinerate skills enchantment bonus. Firewalls now spawn underneath enemies more frequently when using its enchantment bonus, and increase the lucky hit chance for the meteor skills enchantment bonus. Okay, like I said right after Charge Bolt, they want people to use something more than Firebolt and Chain Lightning. So the fact that they did this before the game comes out, they're trying to make everything equal. But I don't know if everything's going to be equal. I think the Sorcerer and the Necromancer are still going to be on top and do a lot of damage compared to the rest of the classes. But only time will tell. We'll see what other stuff they release in blog posts throughout and patch notes before the game comes out. But like I said, only time will tell. And developer note: whenever we introduce changes to our classes, it is with the goal of making both them and their skills feel impactful and powerful. Your feedback has helped us uphold this ideal. Some players have adeptly noticed that certain skills were too powerful. Corpse Explosion, Blood Mist, Necro as well. One of our goals for skills is to have them be interesting to wield and interactive in terms of itemization and combat feel. We made some changes to help in this regard, with one example being the Necromancer's minions. We made a change that make them more vulnerable in combat, which will make Raising the Dead a more active component of the Necromancer's gameplay. Launch is just the first of our class balancer, and you can expect further updates to iterate on this pillar of Diablo 4. So there was a video I watched before making this from Riker. If you're in the Diablo community, you know Riker very well. You'll know that name. I watched his take was on this. He mentioned something that I actually didn't know. There actually is a benefit to continuing to raise your skeletons, due to the fact that it gives them a buff. I guess once you have your max skeletons or your minions out, it will raise a skeletal priest and will provide them with a buff. Now, I did not know that, and he actually said that a lot of people don't know that. I didn't know that. That was something new that I didn't know. So, there were things you would have to do to keep active beforehand. There's a lot of buffs and stuff that you need to do for certain skills. So, but I'll make sure to tag Riker's video down below in the description so you can also get to see what his take and everything is as well. And then UI, fixed an issue where the built-in screen reader was not reading key prompts, game option details, and other UI text. Fixed an issue where actions could not be bound to the mouse wheel. Okay. Fixed an issue where Vague couldn't be bound to the right analog stick on a controller. Never had an issue because I didn't play on controller. I played MNK, so that doesn't bother me. Chat will now display on the left side of the screen when using a centered action bar configuration. Chat should always be on the left side of the screen. That's my personal opinion. Chat should always be on the left side. A character's stats will be displayed by default when players click the materials and stat buttons within their inventory. Good. I like that. I like that. That makes it easier to see stats and everything. The move and interact inputs can now be mapped to one button, while the primary attack input is mapped to a secondary button. Good. Sans serif font used in game has been replaced with a new serif font. Could be interesting. Encounters fixed multiple issues that allowed bosses like the Butcher to become unresponsive. And that Butcher, I'm gonna have nightmares from him. The Butcher has been re-evaluated for difficulty and will present a greater challenge in World Tiers 3 and 4. Okay. Bosses such as Tort, I'm gonna butcher these names. Tort, Melnock, Vahenard, and others were re-evaluated for melee character difficulty, resulting in changes to attacks and fights mechanics. Fixed an issue when vampire brutes using the shadow enchant affix would chain, cast, and impale. Yikes. Didn't know that. Never really encountered those because I didn't play much of the story. I just did a lot of boring. Cellars. Okay, cellars are those like tiny rooms that are just one level dungeons per se, but they're just kind of like encounters and stuff like that that you just go into and there'll be enemies. You kill them, you might get something out of it. Increase the chance for a dungeon event to occur in cellars. Okay, so I wonder if they changed, if it was like 10%, if they increase it to 60, like they did with the dungeons. Could be interesting. Cellars will now consistently reward a chest upon completion. Now you'll feel like you're getting something when you complete the cellar versus not getting anything at all. Fixed an issue where cellars would prematurely be marked as complete. Okay. And fixed an issue where the guaranteed elite monster would be absent from a cellar. Okay. So now it's going to feel like the cellar is actually worth doing versus not getting anything out of it. General quality of life. Fixed an issue where players could increase attack speed by move canceling attacks early. Never heard of that until now. Not know that. Interesting. Glad that got fixed though. Fixed an issue where characters weren't immune and untargetable after loading into an area. That's a good fix. And the reset button has been disabled. Now I'm curious of why they did that. Because that gives you a chance to, complete all the dungeons and then reset them to go get more loot, and to potentially get more loot and stuff like that. So I wonder if there's still going to be a way to reset the dungeons, or if it's still just a button and maybe they'll bring it back. I don't know. Maybe log in, log out, log back in, your dungeons will reset. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. While Diablo 4 Sanctuary is home to over 100 dungeons, the open beta had the subset offered to Acts 1's fractured peaks for players to explore, a level cap that isn't a full representation of the experience at launch. There are many reasons to complete a variety of dungeons, including collecting powerful affixes and the Codex of Power. Players will still be able to repeat dungeons by partying up with others and having them start the dungeon. We also wanted to make sure that resetting the dungeon wasn't a way for hardcore players to avoid death when experiencing challenging in the dungeon. Though we know it can be fun to repeat a specific dungeon, the team is looking at a more permanent solution to this, like having some reasonable cap on how many times the same dungeon can be completed in a row, better support that style of play. In fact, in the full game, players will acquire sigils that will unlock nightmare dungeons, which were specifically designed to be completed repeatedly and optimized to be highly rewarding and replayable. We'll have more to share on this in the future. Okay. And then fixed an issue that caused Gale Valley and Sarah Rapture to have less monsters than intended until the campaign requests in those territories were completed. Okay, so makes sense. They're trying to find a better way to have the dungeons reset. They still want that feature in. They're trying to find a better way to do it. Kind of makes sense, because you don't want people abusing it, because then that's not the point. So I'm curious how they're gonna play that out. And tune in to the next Diablo live stream, which is this Thursday, April 20th, and look and behold, the man I mentioned before, Riker. So if you haven't followed him, follow him. He does amazing Diablo content as well as other games content as well. Definitely keep a lookout for that coming up on this Thursday the 20th. But I'm highly impressed with the developers to fix a lot of these issues that were apparent in the beta. Not a lot of companies or developers will do that. So for them to do that, very impressive. So I'm curious of what else they're going to do before the 6th release of the game. Time will tell. We'll see. But for now, that's it for this video. Make sure if you like what you see, drop us a subscription, follow down below. To date with everything else game related. And I'll see you all in the next video.